Good afternoon, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talk's MLB update. How's everybody doing on this beautiful, at least here in upstate New York, Friday afternoon? Happy to have you here. Oh, if you haven't been with me the last couple of days, you see this bruise. You see the other guy, as I said this morning. I'm just kidding. It's from some dental oral surgery I had earlier. Want to welcome everybody watching today on TGI Sports Talk Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages, X, if you will. We're having trouble streaming to one of our audiences, and that's fine. We'll remove it. Zodiac. No biggie. Welcome to the Northeast Streaming Sports, actually, the National Streaming Sports Network. We're on their YouTube and Roku Live platforms this afternoon, and Let's Talk Sports YouTube page. Special shout out to Ralph Williams from RW Media. Got a little something going on there I don't like. RW Media, who does the Sports Corner every Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time with Smokin' Jim Frazier on WBVP Radio. Check him out. Ralph does some great stuff, other stuff too on RW Media. It's not just the Sports Corner. That's just the one we promote for him specifically. DDH, thumbs up. And a big shout out to my guest this morning on one-on-one with Keith Engle, Tim Worley, former Georgia Bulldog and Pittsburgh Steeler standout running back. We went into some great detail into Chris's career and Chris's struggles and what Chris is doing today. And I love it. Just to kind of be clear, sometimes these interviews won't be for everybody, unfortunately. But we did see actually a great increase in this interview viewer-wise as the show went on, which was impressive. I like to dive in deep. To me, it's not just about a player's career. I'm very interested in his career and talk about the things that went on, but it's not just anecdotes and whatnot. You can buy books for that. And not everybody will have it. Next week we have Buddy Biancalana on, and it could be a totally different tenor. But if guy's had struggles and he's, wants to get back, and, sometimes it takes on a tone that some of us maybe don't like. I'm okay with that. It just is what it is. There's different strokes for different folks, right? And human interest is one of the reasons I do these interviews. It's what turns me on a lot of times, and some of the best interviews I've gotten into are with people that have had some struggles in their life, and a lot of these ex-athletes have. And there are some that I've had on that want to ignore it and pretend it never happened, and there's others that want to embrace it, and we go both ways. So anyway, no big deal. We had a lot of positive feedback from the Georgia sites we belong to, the NCAA sites we belong to, and we've had some a few people that, again, I guess any publicity is good publicity, but it's all good, man. I take it all in stride, so it's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with Tim. We talked for a few minutes again afterwards, and you'll probably see him on some of the other shows that pop up as well from time to time. So, and I know he was on with Ralph Williams this past week in Pittsburgh on the Sports Corner. So check that out. I'll be reposting it a few times, and we're just getting around to getting the shares done this afternoon, and some other efforts. We've got some other great guests coming up soon. Next week's Buddy Biancalana. We got Brian Holloway, former Patriot, on the 10th. Billy Martin Jr., hopefully on the 17th. Kevin Mensch on the 24th. On the 14th will be Paul Rosen. Parrot, and Chris, you can help me out. I keep saying para-athlete. I don't know exactly how I want to describe Paul yet, quickly. But he's paraplegic, and he's played hockey and played other sports as well. So we'll talk to him about this. Should be an inspiring story as well, by the way. And And then we've got, hopefully, I talked to Danny Fuller, who's become a big follower of the show, is getting me hooked up with Todd Marinovich, former USC and Oakland Raider quarterback, certainly an interesting figure. And we've got some other people close to Randy Lurch. We'll probably have on the next month or so as well. A lot of great stories out there, guys. So anyway, today we'll dive into the Major League Baseball stuff. We'll take your comments and questions. We'll go around the league a little bit. I've been a little unfocused on Major League Baseball this week with the draft last night, which we won't get into today, but we'll talk about Sunday morning on the Stream of Consciousness, I'm sure, as the draft will be completed by then. Rounds 2 and 3 tonight and the rest of it tomorrow afternoon. Let's see who's hanging out here with us. Dave Guyette, good afternoon, up there in Amsterdam, New York. Big Yankee fan. Yankees, Yankees are kind of one up, one down mode right now. 17-9, still not a bad start. Again, as we talked about last week and a bit on Sunday, there's some warning signs that I'm concerned about with the Yankees. But right now we're tied for first with the red-hot Orioles. Orioles 8-2, by the way. Who else is hot in the American League? Cleveland's 8-2, their last 10. The Orioles 8-2. Seattle 7-3. In the National League, the Braves 9-1. Phillies 8-3. Mets 7-3. Cubs 7-3. On the flip side, the White Sox. Then the White Sox are the new A's. They're 3-17 overall, if I'm not mistaken. They've lost 13 of the last 14, and they are well above a pace to lose 120 games. So that's our watch team right now. The A's 3-7, falling back into the doldrums. The Astros continue to struggle, 2-8 in their last 10. My God. Then we'll get into some others. Pretty much the rest of them in the National League or the rest of us. JB at the Back It Up Binge Cast. How are you, buddy? Holiday sent down a bit bummed. Listen, everybody's getting excited about Holiday starting. What he started, I don't know. 1 for 28, 1 for 30, whatever it was. You send him down. I get it. Get your feet back under you and bring him back up. There's a whole deluge of people who have started great players. Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle got sent back to the minors. Willie Mays started about 1 for 30 something. Brooks Robinson. It goes on, guys. Not everybody gets off to, a fast major league start and hits 4 home runs in their first game. Jackson Holliday is going to be a star in this league. He's 20 years old. Part of me doesn't want to send him down at all. Again, as a baseball fan. As an Oriole fan, you might have some different opinions. The Orioles are playing good ball despite his struggles. I don't think he'll be in the minors very long. Cut him some slack, though. I mean, the Oriole groups, these guys are all jumping ship on Jackson Holliday after 2 weeks in the major leagues. Joe LaRusso, great to have you with us, Joe. Don't know where you're watching us from, but welcome to the show. You're welcome to comment. Please get to TGI Sports Talk and follow and like the page if you would. Appreciate that. Steve Orpello up in Perth. Good afternoon, Steve. First of the Perth ice we see this afternoon. Joe LaRusso back. How about the Red Sox? What's the story about them? A lot of injuries. Listen, are you a Red Sox fan, Joe? I don't know where you're from. You can certainly tell us where you're from and who you root for. I'm going to assume the Red Sox. Listen, the Red Sox got off to a pretty good start. They've struggled a bit. 500, 5-5 in their last 10. Injuries, sure. But everybody's got injuries. We're going to go around the league and look at the injuries in a little bit. But this team, who are you missing? Brian Bello, who's the number 1 starter. He's out for a couple of weeks yet, maybe more. Cassis out. Whitlock is out. Vaughn Grissom is out. But even with those guys on this team, I was doubtful this team had anywhere to go but the basement. There's just not enough pitching. They're missing their top 2 starters, Bello and Pivetta, but the problem is that they're their first 2 starters to begin with. And Garrett Whitlock is out, former Yankee. And yeah, Cassis, Grissom, Trevor Story, I think is out for the season, right? And Tyler O'Neill's been hurt after a great start, 6 or 7 home runs in the first 10 days of the season. I just don't see where the offense, outside of maybe O'Neill, if he's bouncing back from to his earlier Cardinal efforts. Devers, obviously. I don't see where the offense or the outs are coming from. Where's the runs or the outs coming from? I don't get it. So let me know, Joe, who you're rooting for. What do you think about umpires who ejected Boone for no reason? I think Wendelstadt's there's going to be some kind of penalty paid by Wendelstadt. Listen, I spent some time on this show or Sunday show. I don't remember which one. It might have been Sunday's show, apologizing to my friend Dale Scott, who was a former great and a Major League Baseball umpire, because I was ripping into Angel Hernandez, but really only Angel Hernandez in general, not the umpires in general. But listen, umpiring has not been good, and I get it. Dale doesn't want to have to defend his chosen profession day after day. But my point is, don't defend those guys, Dale. When you defend them, they become a reflection of you in my mind. You know, if there's guys that aren't doing their job, then we need to take care of it. And there are guys with rabbit ears. Wendelstadt's one of them, apparently. And Boone does. Listen, Boone's been thrown out of lots of games, and deservedly so most of the time. He did nothing here. He had an argument with the first hitter, goes back, a fan yells, and Wendelstadt throws him out. And then his reasoning that it was somebody on the bench and Boone's got to be the one to go to pay for it. That's BS, because you see umpires go all the time, pick somebody out and throw them out of the game. So somebody's, again, the umpires union is very, very strong. But they've got to be careful. I mean, I don't want more AI in the game. I don't want robot umpires. But we've got to get some of these guys in check. You look at some of the strike zones of these guys, and look at my focus has been on Angel Hernandez and Angel Hernandez only, and Dale, guys of your ilk that are retired or still umpiring, that are your friends and are doing a great job. This is not a reflection on you, but it'll become one, and things will get put into place because we know what Major League Baseball does because of the transgressions of a few or the inefficiency of the few. So, you know, maybe it'd be best to call these guys out. And I understand union brothers aren't going to do that. So there's our boy Chris in Toronto. We read the sports page in the paper. Transactions was at the end like a dessert, often a downer when seeing no transactions. With the amount of daily transactions now, is the press coverage different or is managing changed? So, you know, it's a good, Chris, this is a great topic. First of all, just the beginning of this, right? Reading the sports page, Sunday especially, was just a treat for me. I don't know where you grew up, Chris, but I grew up in a very rural area in upstate New York. There was no cable TV. We had 3 channels. You had local sports, and, you know, we saw some Yankee highlights now and again. We got about 10 Yankee games a year, maybe. There was no This Week in Baseball till I was late in my teens. So we'd look at the box scores, which we'd only get the Mets and the Yankees. Transactions, standings were in there every day. So you'd go through those. Yes, look at the transactions. And often there were none. But now here's the thing. You know what's different? Yes, managing's different. Press coverage, it's all different. But you see a lot more guys going up and down. They bring guys up for one start and send them out. There's a lot more injuries, obviously. We're going to take a look at some of the injuries again around the league because every week we talk, there's like a whole new pile of them. So there's a lot of factors here But the thing that really strikes me about your comment, and I really like, is I remember very fondly, especially the Sunday paper, because then we got all the stats, right? You got all you had was the pitching stats and the hitting stats. So you didn't have just a bevy of information in front of you. You had batting average, home runs, RBIs, stolen bases, probably for hitters. For pitchers, you had wins, maybe losses, maybe saves, ERA, and strikeouts. That was it. Very little context to go on off of that. And to me, those are still stats that matter. And in a lot of people's opinion, they're stats that don't matter. So and Chris, I love when you go back to these and you take me back to these days. I miss those days. So I love the information in front of me, the way we can have these conversations and dive into them. Sure. But you notice a lot of what I talk about. I'll talk about OPS because I do think it's an important stat. And one that means something because it comes from other stats that I'm familiar with. Slugging percentage, on base percentage, but made up crap like WAR itself, exit velocity, launch angles. I don't give a crap about hard hit percentage and blah, 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 blah. So I go back to my days as a youth, and I these things bring me back, and I love it when you go down these roads. So please continue to do so, and I have fun during this show doing it. My team too. I filled up. I've got 3 teams now. I was only going to do Drew's league, but Greg Rawlings from a couple of the groups that I belong to. America's favorite baseball, America's favorite pastime is one of the groups he runs, plus some football groups and specific baseball groups too. He asked me to get into a couple of money leagues, and I did. And I picked a lot of the same guys in all 3 leagues, and I fill up all my injuries, DL spots. I won't use IL, as you know. So I'm having the same problem, man. In fact, I haven't adjusted my lineup for today yet. So injuries are tough, but I tell you, again, there's something, and it's something that I wanted to, and I never did get around to it this morning with Tim Worley. He was talking early on about when kids played every sport, they played all year round. Different sports would work different muscles and whatnot. And again, I wonder if the specialization, I'm sure of it, by the way, the specialization of certain sports is causing more injuries. The specialization of the way players work out, pitchers work out, everyday players work out that are not necessarily baseball related. But also the fact that, when they're younger, they aren't maybe playing every sport. I don't know. Maybe kids are playing every sport and I'm just not aware of it. But I do think there's more specialization. And if you're going to focus on one sport, that's where they are today. And I think there might be something to that. I think there's a lot that plays into the injuries, especially with the pitchers. The pitch clock, again, the way they're trained, I don't want to sound like a broken record week after week, but it's the same thing. Well, that's kind of what we're talking about here, right, Stephen? I think there's a lot of factors. I think some of the guys maybe don't work out. I think the workouts that they do are not baseball related necessarily. We talked about it with Marty Cardova a couple of weeks ago, former Twins Rookie of the Year. And, because I've had this belief for a while that, we're hearing about injuries we never heard about before. And maybe to Chris's point, it's different type of coverage and not just saying a guy's got a pulled muscle. He's got a pulled oblique, a torn oblique, I never heard of an oblique or a quad or whatever 40 years ago. Maybe there's too much training. Maybe some of these guys are too muscle bound, right? How many times did Frank Howard get hurt? Frank Howard looked like he worked out a lot. Harmon Killebrew. Pitchers would pitch 320 innings. Did Roger? Oh, Roger got thrown out. Roger Gifford, I believe we're talking about our baseball coach. Roger got thrown out at least one time that I can remember. And it was hard for high school baseball coaches, at least our high school baseball coaches, because they didn't have assistants then. It was just him. And I remember him getting thrown out, and I want to say Rich Edwards' dad took over the team that day. But Roger probably could have gotten thrown out a couple of games. So most of the time, Roger would save his diatribes for the umpires until after the games. I remember one particular game in Fort Plain and one in Northville where it got pretty ugly. But great stuff, guys. Awesome stuff to start the show off today. Oh, God. Anyway, we should go around. Let's take a look at injuries. Since we're talking about injuries, what do you got, Chris? Hold on. Chris always got something good for me. In 1992, Nolan Ryan went into the twilight of his career, was noted as the first pitcher to get into weightlifting in the Major League Baseball. I don't remember that specifically. I don't doubt that. And Nolan Ryan, by the way, we're coming up in June on the anniversary of a game where he pitched against, I want to say Louis Tiant, because I think the stat came up when I was interviewing Louis Tiant a couple of years ago, where they both threw, one of them threw 160 pitches, the other one threw 147, without any dire consequences to their careers. Ryan only went on to pitch another, 3,000 innings after that. And Nolan Ryan, to his credit, when he took over the Rangers, I want to say early 2000s, mid 2000s. I don't remember exactly when. I guess it was around then. He started to put into place throughout the organization an emphasis on actually throwing more to strengthen arms and stretch out pitchers. So they weren't just going to pitch 70, 80, 90 pitches. But before this could really take hold, he'd left the Ranger organization. I think Nolan Ryan is a great example. Of a guy who threw a gazillion innings, a gazillion complete games, had a few arm injuries here and there, but nothing serious that put him out for seasons. I guess one time he had a shortened season. He mostly had blister problems and things like that. A little bit of an elbow problem, I remember, in the middle of his career. But they'd still go out and throw. Right? It's funny, we can go back. In 1992, Nolan Ryan was already in his 40s. I read a story today about when Nolan Ryan, I think it was in Jim Kern's book, because Jim Kern is another ex-ball player I hope to have on soon. And I was reading a book on Kindle last night, a couple chapters that he'd written about the time of the Rangers and Indians, and talked about the signing of Nolan Ryan with the Rangers. And they thought he was going to pitch one more year. They thought he was, just a publicity stunt. Well, he pitched like, I don't know, 5 more years, 6 more years, and threw 2 more no-hitters. Plus knocked the snot out of Robin Ventura. Let's go. I got to run down the injuries on these teams. This is crazy. This will take a little bit, but look at Arizona. I'm only going to give you the names. There's probably, 15 names on here. Paul Sewell has been out for the entire season so far. Merrill Kelly just got hurt this week. Miguel Castro. Eduardo Rodriguez has not pitched all day, and he was moved to the 60-day disabled list here this past week. The Braves, Sean Murphy, Spencer Strider out for the season. Ian Anderson's been out for the last year. Dave Guyette knows Ian Anderson as he's related. Baltimore, John Means, Austin Hayes, Tyler Wells, Birch. It just goes on and on here, guys. Felix Bautista out for a lot of the year. The Red Sox we talked about already. Pivetta, Grissom, Bello, Cassis, Henneman, Whitlock, Story. Guys, oh my God, Liam Hendricks. Giolito, forgot about him earlier. There's 20 some names on this list. The Cubs, Kyle Hendricks recently. Cody Bellinger just the last few days. Drew Smyly, Justin Steele, Suzuki. Oh my God, the White Sox, Moncada, Stassi, Robert, Barlow. Oh, Sean Burke. Again, over a dozen names. The Reds, Jake Fraley. Montos, no surprise there. This is one of the shorter lists, by the way. Matt McClain, a huge cornerstone to every fantasy team I drafted. God knows when he'll be back. He's on a 60-day DL. Ugh. The Guardians. Again, there's 15 names on this list, guys. Shane Bieber out for the year. Biggest name there. Are there any big names on the Rockies? Well, Nolan Jones, their probably youngest budding superstar. Chris Bryant, no surprise there. Daniel Bard. Kyle Freeland. Herman Marquez. Amazing. The Tigers, Carson Kelly. Stop me if you heard the story before. Gio Urshela. Garrett Hill, Tyler Matson, Angel DeJesus. The Astros, who are struggling mightily. Injuries, part of it. Valdez, Urquidy, Javier, McCullers, Garcia. That's an entire starting rotation, guys. Ortega. Christian Gonzalez. Kendall Graveman, another relief pitcher. The Royals, very short list here. Jordan Lyles, Carlos Hernandez, nobody of major consequence necessarily. Josh Taylor, Kyle Wright, although Kyle Wright won 20 games for the Braves a couple years ago. The Angels, Miguel Sano, Brandon Drury, Anthony Rendon, but he doesn't want to play anyway. He doesn't like his profession. The Dodgers, Walker Buehler, we already know about, has been out. Jason Hayward's now out. Blake Torrena is out. Bobby Miller. Clayton Kershaw still out. Gonsolin. Dustin May. The Marlins, Luzardo. Brazoban. Puck. Garrett. There's another whole starting rotation. Jake Berger. Yuri Perez, Alcantara for the season. Milwaukee, Yelich now is out. Wade Miley. I mean, guys, this is amazing. DL Hall. Taylor Clark, Devin Williams, excuse me. Brandon Woodruff we know about. The Twins, also struggling. Duran is out. Correa is out. Churio. I can go on. Should I keep going on? The Mets, Alvarez now. Senga we know about. Drew Gilbert, Tyler McGill. The Yankees, John Birdie goes on the DL. DJ LeMahieu was coming off. It looks like he's not. Pitchers, Trevino. Oswaldo Perez gets hurt in spring training. Garrett Cole, I still have my doubts. Loizaga. Warren, who they were counted on a little bit this year. Efros. They got a whole bullpen of injuries. The A's, I don't know what the A's are doing. Is anybody... Andujar, to use a guy Chris Fgrave loves, as do I. J.D. Davis, who they picked up this spring. Diaz. The Phillies, Taijuan Walker. Michael Rucker. The Phillies have gotten away fairly free. Pittsburgh, Grandel, Marco Gonzalez, Endy Rodriguez. Not too bad. Padres, Darvish, Machado. He's on paternity, so you can't really count him. Padres have gotten away fairly free. There's a bunch of names here, but nobody that huge, right? Blake Snell now. All these guys that God, like who Scott Boras kept out, right? They're all struggling. All of them. Blake Snell's hurt. I said don't sign Blake Snell. Yankees. Alex Cobb. Bednar. I'm coming back to your comments. I think I'm almost through this list. Robbie Ray. J.P. Crawford for the Mariners just gets hurt. They've gotten away fairly free. Playing good ball, too. The Cardinals, Middleton, Carlson, Carpenter, Edman. The Rays, LaDuca, Lowe, Bradley, Taylor Walls. A lot of guys. Jeffrey Springs, starting pitcher. Drew Rasmussen, Shane McClanahan. It's another half a starting rotation. The Rangers, we know about their injuries, but Josh Young has gone on the DL now for 60 days. Corey Bradford, DeGrom and Scherzer, of course. Maul. Toronto, Manoah just goes on the 15-day DL. Kiermaier just goes on the DL. Chad Green's been on there. Joey Votto, he's probably never coming back, but that's a different situation. That's it. Guys, look at, there's superstars, and there's you could put together two really good teams just from this list of names I just gave you. It's unbelievably bad. JB, what do you got? You guys have a fantasy league. Been running one for 19 years. How's your team, and what's your team name? My team name and all of them is Tweedler. The Tweedler, and I can't get into the background of the Tweedler name. One day, maybe we will. So I'm in several leagues. I was in one, a money league, an auction league, much different than the day-to-day leagues, and Rick is going to be familiar with it. We're in with Drew. But I was in one since I got out 3 years ago, I think. And we started in 1987. It was an auction league. It was a lot of fun. It was a deep league. It was a dynasty league. You draft 40-man rosters. It was a lot of work. Kenny's on the DL as well. Oh God, I hope he's okay. And it's not his, that hand. Danny Fuller. What do you got, Chris? And Danny, let me know. I think I gave you I gave you my, I was getting tired last night. I think I gave you my email and phone for Todd Marinovich, possibly an interview there. It's funny. I'm monitoring work here. And one of my people is a huge Robin Ventura fan. I just noticed you made a comment at work while I was admonishing. I always celebrate the anniversary of the day that Robin got beat up by a 70-year-old man. So 47, 70, whatever, it's the same thing. Oh God. Anyway, Danny, what's the Walker Buehler news? That's what we want. Walker Buehler back. Let's look around the league. Oh, there's the injuries around the league. That's really the news, for crying out loud. My God. I just went through the injuries, and it took like 20 minutes. I didn't name every name, guys. I named the names of people who have some recognition for. Yikes, it's ugly. Anybody playing right now? Nobody playing early today? Right now, the Royals are ahead of the Tigers 8-0, by the way. Let's look around the league. Started American League East. End up with Danny's L.A. Dodgers in the West. We're struggling a little bit. The Orioles have played really great baseball, 8-2 in their last 10. They've gone to 16-8 after a tough start. We mentioned they sent Jackson Holliday down. Don't get excited. He's going to be back. He'll be back soon. What do you got here? Oh, geez. Todd's been to 3 rehabs. I think, from what I've read, he's doing okay now, though. But, yeah. Speaking of back to Robin Ventura, you don't charge him out on Nolan Ryan. Sorry, Lori. I mean, it's like, what's the Jim Croce song? You don't spit in the wind. You don't pull on Superman's cape. You don't charge Nolan Ryan on the mound because he'll stand his ground. You remember watching, I don't think it was that game. He took a ball to the face one time and is out there pitching with blood running all down his face, for crying out loud. They don't make him like Nolan Ryan anymore. Mark Mancini, Pirates and Tigers will make the playoffs. We know the Pirates aren't. Pirates are already fading. I still like the Tigers a bit. I'm going to get there in a second, too, Danny. Just to finish up the East quickly, the Orioles are playing well. Jackson Holliday, don't sweat it. He'll be back. Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, Brooks Robinson. The list goes on and on of guys who've gotten off to horrific starts and had pretty decent careers. Yankees 17-9, starting to have a little worries about some of the run scoring or lack of it without home runs. The Red Sox have come back to earth, but still at 14-12. The Blue Jays playing 500 baseball. Still not crazy about Schneider and some of the moves that he makes or doesn't make. Donnie Baseball, I'm telling you, will be the manager before long there. And the Rays struggling at 13-13. This could be and is probably the best division in baseball. And again, you may argue with me, Danny. Top to bottom, I think the Red Sox will be well under 500 before this is over. But at the moment, this is probably the best division in baseball. To talk a little bit about the Tigers in the Central Division, the Indians, the team formerly known as the Indians. Again, yes, Danny, I'm also don't move off that name either. The Guardians are 18-7, one of the big surprises in baseball, 8-2 in their last 10. The Royals hanging in there at 16-10. The Tigers were my pick to be a surprise in this division. They've struggled a little bit. They've gotten back to 3 games over 500, only 5-5 in their last 10, though. +7 run differential. I still like the Tigers quite a bit here. We'll see. And I see a couple comments, which I'll get to as soon as I get through the American League here quick. The Twins starting to come back. A lot of chants and signs in the ballpark in Minnesota to fire Rocco Baldelli. He's only, what do they expect in Minnesota with a middle of the road payroll, unwilling to really invest in winning outside of Carlos Correa, who can't stay on the field. All he does is win, division championships and doesn't advance in the playoffs. I get it. And the White Sox, 3-22, well on their way to 121 losses, breaking the Mets' all-time record. This will be my team to watch for this year. In the West, the Mariners lead at 13-12. They are 7-3 in their last 10, playing better baseball, playing the best baseball in the division at the moment. The Rangers are struggling along. The Angels have fallen 5 games under 500. The A's are starting to right their ship. They're wrong their ship, I should say, at 3-7. Now they're 10-16, and the Astros just can't get out of their own way. They've lost 5 in a row again, and they're 2-8 in their last 10, and they've fallen 6.5 games out of first place already. By the way, the White Sox, 15 games out of first place, and we haven't got out of April. That's almost impossible. What we got here? I see a new, what do I do here? SOVNEDZ. Is this my eye test? What is Sovdenez? Is the Orioles Rays parlay a good move tonight? Let me take a look at who's pitching here tonight. We get to have some gambling questions here, so we like to, keep you guys up on what's going on. Who's pitching for the? It all depends on matchups, right? So Baltimore has got Corbin Burns. I love Corbin Burns. The line is, well, you're betting the runs. I guess you're betting the money line, I guess. Baltimore is minus 270, so that's a big bet. I like that a lot. And who's Tampa Bay got? Tampa Bay's at Chicago. Tampa Bay 230 on the road. Zach Eflin, probably their best pitcher at the moment. So I'm going to say yes. You're going to be risking a lot to win not much on the money line unless you're betting runs, which I never recommend in baseball. But you'll lay a lot to win a little, but we'll see. Walker B had 3 reps. See, that was my bad because I'd gotten Marinovich in my head. It's a shame because Walker Buehler is I think one of the most talented pitchers to come along in a while. I picked him to win the Cy Young before his most recent injury. It's been 2 years, hasn't it? Danny, since he pitched, it feels like it's been 2 years since he pitched. No argument. AL East again this time, top to bottom. I think the bottom's going to be much lower than it is right now. The bottom right now is the Rays at 13-13. The Red Sox, and I apologize to if in fact Joey, is it Joey? Who do you have up here before? Where'd he go? Where'd my guy go? Going back through the comments here. Well, he fell out of the comments, so I'm not sure. Joe LaRusso, there he is. So, Joe, you're a Red Sox fan. I apologize, but I think the Red Sox are going to be they're going to be bad. They're not going to be White Sox bad, but they're not going to be good. This team could be 20 games under 500. They don't have good players to begin with, and a lot of those guys are already hurt. Checked with Porter from the Raptors on the smart bet. He might as well open up his own touting service now because he's not going to play in the NBA anymore. So you might as well make use of your talents or lack of them. Oh, gosh. In the National League, the Braves still rolling. 9-1 in their last 10, guys. 3 in a row again, 17-6. And the East is hot. The Phillies 8-2 in their last 10. The Mets 7-3. The Mets have righted the ship nicely after a really bad start, 0-5, 0-6 start. Phillies, I think, are better put together with I think, defensively than they've been in a bit. If they can keep Schwarber out of the outfield, that's good. Marsh in center field covers a lot of ground. Their pitching is good. Bullpen has been better. And I love Rob Thompson. If you watch my shows, if you watch this show, you know I love Rob Thompson. You know that I wanted Rob Thompson to get the Yankee job when Aaron Boone got it. And they basically gave him a courtesy interview and said, "See you later, Rob." And the Marlins at 6-20, they may make their own run at this 100. We could have a couple of teams in the White Sox. The Marlins, I'm not counting the A's out of this yet, making a run at that 120 loss mark. Let's go. Don't let me down. In the Central, the Brewers, the surprising Brewers, holding it up, 6-4 in the last 10, 2 wins in a row, 16-8. Half game lead over the Cubs. The Cubs now have lost Hendricks. Hendricks hadn't pitched well. And Cody Bellinger to the disabled list we just talked about in the last few days. 10-3 at home has really been driving their record. Just a half game behind the Brewers. The Reds starting to pick it up a little bit. 14-11. Just 500 the last 10 games, though. Dela Cruz, I think, becomes the youngest guy, if I remember right. What did I hear? Let's see if it's still here. I believe Dela Cruz became the youngest guy, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, became the youngest guy to 20 home runs and 20 stolen bases. I could be wrong about that because I'm not seeing the article that I saw before, but I think he became the youngest guy to do that. Somebody can certainly correct me if I'm incorrect in that statement. The Pirates are becoming the Pirates, as Danny Fuller said. Mark Mancini, if you're out there listening, my friend, stop bashing the Dodgers, who have won 4 in a row again. I said they were struggling. Now they've won 4 in a row. Because you're Pirates. I know, and Mark likes to talk about how the Dodgers haven't won a World Series outside of COVID years since 1988. Well, the Pirates haven't won anything. They haven't been to a World Series since 1979. Just saying. They're down to 500, 2-8 in their last 10. This team is not very good. The Cardinals, who I thought were going to have a pretty good team, and still could, struggling with some injuries, and the pitching staff, trying to get a pitching staff together. They're 4-6 in their last 10, 11-14, and in last place in the Central. We'll get to the West here in a second. Pitching is probably 70% of the game. Absolutely. This isn't rocket science, right? You watch regular season games, and again, I don't mean that to belittle your comment, Steve. I promise you. Especially when you get to the playoffs, pitching and defense and timely hitting still wins. Look at the Astros' success, not this season, up until this season in the postseason. Forget about sign stealing nonsense. Pitching, hitting, solid defense. That's how the Diamondbacks got there last year to the World Series. The Rangers are a little bit outside of the norm in my mind because they're more of the three true outcome team, and they won the World Series. But still, most of the time in the playoffs, you see the Yankees. What happens to the Yankees every year? The pitching either doesn't hold up or there's no timely hitting. They can't hit elite pitching and they don't know how to scratch out runs. And that's the case for a lot of teams. When you're not hitting home runs, you don't know how to play small ball and scratch out runs. Actually, I think what Yogi said was 90% of the game is mental. The other half is physical. Just to get my little Yogiism in. The Cubs have 4 first basemen when healthy. Cooper, Mervis, Wisdom, Bellinger share the wealth. Well, Bellinger, in fairness, Chris, hasn't really been a full-time. Well, he can play first base, and he's a good first baseman, but he hasn't played first base regularly in a while. He's been an outfielder and a very good outfielder. Still a guy the Yankees should have gone after instead of Verdugo, in my mind. Because he could have played center field. I'm worried about Judge playing center field every day. I mean, he hasn't gotten off to a great start, and I'm not saying that's because he's in center. He hasn't had time, I don't think, to wear down, but that's a big body to be covering all that much ground day after day after day. And I know Mac McGrath and I debate about this, that it's not any harder to play center field than it is to play left or right. Well, that comes from somebody who's never played center field, I would say. And I do think the Yankees have been better off to sign Bellinger and play him in center field where he's very competent defensively, at least as good as Judge. And you'd be better in right field with Judge, and you'd be better in left field with Soto hidden over there, or move Stanton and bring in another defensive player. You could have played Bellinger in left and played Grisham in center. If Grisham could hit enough, he's one of the best fielding center fielders in baseball. But yes, Chris, they do have a lot. And by the way, I don't think Garrett Cooper, I mean, they do have 4 first basemen, but you know, how much quality is there? I'm not a big Patrick Wisdom fan, and Garrett Cooper's had his chances a little bit with the Yankees, not a lot I get. But with the Marlins, he had more than enough chances to show he can do something. Michael Busch, I think, is a good player who's starting there now. So that's 5 because they've got a new starter there now. But who you want to share the wealth with? It's just, it's not. I don't think baseball is a socialist environment. Well, other than revenue sharing, I guess it is. Let me go out west here. I'm not sure what I said, but I'd love to know what I said to get the boom. Oh my gosh. Where was I? The West. Only got about 10 minutes left. Chris got me derailed early with the old newspapers and the stats. I love it. This thing I thought was getting better, man. That is nasty looking, right? Ugh. Out west, we haven't got to the LA Dodgers yet. They're 16-11. Had a struggle for about, I don't know, a week and a half. Fell around 500, maybe a game over. They're now back to 5 games over, the 5-game win streak, and a 2.5-game lead over the Padres, who have fallen to 500. The Diamondbacks scraping along 2 games under 500. The Giants, who, along with the Tigers, were kind of my surprise pick in the National League. I had the Giants and the Tigers squeaking out the last wild card in their respective leagues. The Giants have started to straighten themselves out a little bit. They're 6-4 in their last 10, up to 12-14. And then, of course, you have the Rockies. Bud Black has got to sit there every day and say, how do I get myself fired? I mean, Bud Black's a good baseball man. Bud Black did a good job in San Diego. And he's got to rue the day he ever took this job. Yeah, I'm sure it's great on payday. But other than that, can you think of a fate worse than being stuck with the Rockies the last, I don't know. He's got to be there nearly 10 years. How long's Bud Black been in Colorado? Nobody should be sentenced to cruel and unusual punishment like this. We got there. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the right keyboard here. Bud Black. Hang on. How come I can't type now? What's going on here? Bud Black. I want to know how long he's been suffering, poor bastard, in Colorado. He's been there since 2017. Sorry, only 7 years. It only feels like 10 or 20 to poor Bud Black. Ugh. Has he ever had a winning record there? And I can't blame Bud Black. How do I blame Bud Black? His best record is 74-87 in 2021. Oh, I take that back. His first couple of years there, I take it back. I mean, they made the playoffs the first couple of years there, 87-75, 91-72. And he's been paying for it ever since. Good baseball, man, Bud Black. Time to move on. Really sorry about that. Who we got? Scott Colby shows up late. Scott's always come in for the last 5 minutes of every show. The Red Sox offense is just brutal, striking out the most in Major League Baseball, and it's not close. They average 10 strikeouts a game. It's very emblematic of how the game's played today, Scott. It's really, really ridiculous. And as a Red Sox fan, I know at 14-12, you got to believe this is your high water mark. When your team's not very good as it is, and as I pointed out earlier, you're missing. I do want to get to the schedule this weekend here. Hold on. Let me go back to the Red Sox first. To the wrong thing. The Red Sox. Let me pull up their depth chart. Their top 2 pitchers, who are no good to begin with. When Bellows your number 1 pitcher and Pavetto's number 2, you're in a lot of trouble. They're both hurt. Garrett Whitlock, your number 4, is hurt. Your starting first baseman, your starting second baseman, your starting shortstop are all out. The shortstop's out for the year, and none of them are that good anyway. Scott, you can't believe this team's going to be any better than 14-12. This has got to be the high water mark. Chris says, go back 30 years when Colorado and they had 3 or 4 guys in the lineup with 40-plus homers and 120 RBIs, and they still couldn't win anything. The pitching was the problem then, right? I mean, they had some hitters. Larry Walker, Andres Galarraga, Bichette, Vinny Castilla, I think, are probably the guys you're thinking of, the 3 or 4 guys that you're thinking of. And there's a few others. Ellis Burks would be in there, depending on the year we're talking about. Todd Helton. I guess Todd Helton might not go back 30 years. Don Baylor was out there and had some good teams, good hitting teams, couldn't pitch. Nobody could pitch. But there's more. Now it's just a poorly run organization. There's nobody who can play on this team. Could be worse. You could be coaching the Carolina Panthers in the NFL. I think we bashed the Panthers last night. Oh, God. Good one, though, Rick. Steve, what do you got here? Look at the Yankees yesterday. One home run, 10 guys left on base, can't manufacture a run, constantly relying on a home run it's very frustrating. Again, I've talked about it now since they got off to that great start. I mean, virtually every loss they have not hit the long ball. And this isn't new to this team. This is the team that we've watched for the last more than half a decade. When they're hitting home runs, they win games. When they don't, and again, you know where it really crops is up. Last year was a little bit different because it bit them in the ass in the regular season, but it's historically, I mean, they won 100 games one year and they go out in the playoffs and don't score runs against elite pitching or even semi-elite pitching. It shuts them down and they don't have a good approach to situational baseball. And again, this is not just limited to the Yankees. It's an epidemic all around baseball. Breaking news. MLB just announced a 14 playoff with the White Sox, Rockies, Red Sox, and A's. Listen, I think the Marlins might want to scratch their way in there as well. And your Red Sox haven't fallen that far yet. Scott. The Blue Jays have been scrapping together wins without the long ball. They're struggling, though, man. Buck Martinez pondered, maybe this is the way to go. They're only 500, aren't they? I mean, and again, I know you're Chris did out himself as a Yankee fan up there in Toronto. I hope I haven't had to put you in witness protection or anything up there, Chris, when I revealed that here on the show. I do think Donnie Baseball will be the manager there before this season is out. Oh, it's coming. It's back to the old days, right, with the Red Sox, where you just wait for the bottom to fall out before you actually won a World Series in 2004. Back to the old days. Let's look at the schedule real quick before we wrap it up. This weekend, we'll have Kansas City at Detroit. That's an interesting matchup in the Central. We start with Seth Lugo and Reese Olson tonight. Oakland will be at Baltimore, as we mentioned. Ross Stripling at Corbin Burns. The Dodgers are at Toronto. Gavin Stone and Chris Bassett. Toronto could be in trouble after this series. The Cubs go to Boston. Sorry, Scott. Amanaga, another guy I can't say, against Cutter Crawford. The Cards are at the Mets. Mikolas against Buto Bali. The Nationals at the Marlins. Trevor Williams against Maldonado. The Indians, team formerly known as the Indians, at the Braves. Logan Allen at Chris Sale. Chris Sale, yeah, he's been very mediocre. The Braves have been good. Chris Sale was their big pickup, and they're hanging their hat on for this year, and I'm not sure why. He's been mediocre at best this year. Tampa Bay at the White Sox. Elfin at Flexen. The Reds at Texas with Ashcroft and Eovaldi. The Yankees go to Milwaukee, the Red Hot Brewers. Luis Gil, who showed great flashes of talent and also tremendous bouts of wildness, will pitch against Colin Ray. The Twins go to the Angels. Uber against Sandoval. The Diamondbacks are at Seattle. Zach Gallen, who I love Zach Gallen, against Emerson Hancock. And Seattle keeps throwing really good starting pitchers out there as well. The Phillies and Aaron Nolan will visit San Diego and Joe Musgrove. And the aforementioned folding Pirates will send Quinn Priester against Kyle Harrison and the San Francisco Giants. And we'll get ready to wrap it up here with a few comments. Let me just turn on a little bit of, give me a little music there, and we'll finish up your comments, and we'll get out of here. The Royals buried the Tigers today, 8-0. Is that right? Did I miss? Oh, there was a final. I missed that then. Royals are playing well. You're right, Scott. I had the Tigers as a surprise team there, and maybe the Royals are one we should have watched. We'll see you Sunday with the Sunday Stream of Consciousness for sure. Probably lots of talk about the draft and more baseball. On the way to Rick's on his way to Philly in search of Mark Mancini and his cheesesteak. Good luck. Kenny shows up late. Good afternoon. Good to have you with you. It's the MLB update. Good to have you with us, Kenny. And Scott says Chris Sale would fit right in with the Red Sox staff if he could ever get him. Oh, wait, you had him, right? You did. And you know what? He hasn't had a good year. And I don't know. Thanks. Good luck. Guys, we'll see you Sunday with the Stream of Consciousness. Have a great, great Friday. Keith Engle for TGI Sports Talks. MLB update. Have a great weekend, guys.